Life hadn't just disappointed me. It had beaten me down like an old rug. After losing 3 jobs in 18 months and hearing Linda, my ex-wife, call me a good-for-nothing, short-sighted, spineless man across our kitchen table, and later, in courtroom 36B, hope had packed its bags and moved out. There I was, 43 years old with $27 in my wallet and a gas tank running on fumes. The night sky hung so black that even the brightest stars couldn't punch through. I'd driven for hours on a deserted highway with pines standing like giants on both sides, their silhouettes watching my rattling Buick with silent judgment. When I spotted the neon buzz of a gas station flickering in the distance, it felt like finding the last lighthouse on a hungry coast. My car sputtered into the lot on nothing but prayers. The sign overhead, Ray's Station, glowed with an eerie coincidence. Need a job, Ray? This place is hiring. Too bad no one else wants you. That's the conversation swimming through my head as I pushed open the door to the convenience store. The place was abandoned by time itself. Candy bars with faded wrappers bent the shelves, next to aspirin bottles with yellowed labels and sunglasses that had been hanging there since the Cold War. I spotted one single figure standing behind the gas station's counter. She was a woman in a blue uniform, the color washed out from too many laundry cycles. Her name tag hung crookedly, Carla. She had the look of someone who'd already turned in her resignation to life, with that 1,000-yard stare I recognized from my time working the VA hospital desk. The look people get when they've seen something no amount of therapy could ever fix. She gave me a weak smile that said, "Welcome, stranger. Now run while you still can." "Ray?" she asked quietly. The way she said it made me feel like she was checking something she already knew. "Yeah, Raymond Bowers," I said, clearing the road dust from my throat. "But Ray's fine." She nodded, sliding a piece of paper across the counter. "These are the rules," she said, voice flat. "Rules for what?" I asked. Carla motioned around the store with a wave that barely had the energy to lift her hand. "This place. If you still want the job, follow them. Don't break them. Don't question them too hard either. It's safer that way." I thought about pressing her, but then I caught a glimpse of the lines under her eyes, carved there by something worse than insomnia. She sighed, tossed me a key ring that clattered against the counter like bird bones. I closed my hand around it by instinct. "Whatever you do," Carla muttered, "don't let them see you sweat." Then, without waiting for me to respond, she ducked out from behind the register, grabbed a beat-up duffel bag that looked like it had traveled more miles than my car, and practically sprinted past me toward the door. She hopped into a battered pickup truck, started it with a wheezing cough, and disappeared into the night like she couldn't get away fast enough. I stood alone with the hum of the lights and confusion spinning in my chest. Them? Who was she talking about? And why had she just quit on the spot? The ad I'd seen promised said, generous pay, minimal oversight, night shift. Perfect for a guy fleeing his past, right? If I hadn't been so desperate or so damn curious, I might have left right then. Instead, I unfolded Carla's paper. Rules for survival. Beneath that, a list. 1. Honor the shift log. At midnight, a second summary prints. Place a personal photograph in the safe right after. Something in that printout sees you when you're by yourself, and if it lingers, it will nest inside your thoughts. 2. Beware the overly polite customer. If you get more than 3 compliments about our coffee or service in a single conversation, stop serving them the regular stuff. You must switch to the blue jug. The polite ones crave our courtesy in ways you don't want to witness if we keep feeding them normal brew. 3. At pump number 3, never pump past $6.66. If the meter goes beyond that number, the pump resets to 0 on its own. Don't let it. Whatever tries to slip through that reset can't be allowed to arrive. The hollow ones gather there. 4. No favors in the restroom. If somebody starts pleading, crying, or acting desperate in there, ignore them. Anyone who stays longer than 3 minutes is not the same when they come out. And if you feel a hand on your shoulder when nobody's there, pray. 5. Mid-shift price sign change. Sometimes around 2 or 3 a.m., the big price sign outside will flicker to a random number. That means we're about to get a special customer who pays with intangible forms, like regrets or borrowed dreams. You must adjust the sign to match, or they'll roam inside your mind instead. 6. Never accept a child's drawing. Occasionally, you'll see a kid wandering around offering scribbled art. You must refuse. That paper is a doorway to their world, or they're a doorway to ours, and stepping across that threshold can drag you into a darkness full of small hands and crawling laughter. 7. Count the customers at closing. Right before you lock the doors at dawn, do a head count. If the total doesn't match the transactions, one of them is still here, hiding among the aisles or the walls. If you don't find it before leaving, it might follow you home. And it has the patience of centuries. After reading the rules, I told myself, it's just an initiation ritual, some messed up station hazing. But the goosebumps on my arms told a different story. I tucked the list into my back pocket, approached the counter, and exhaled. Don't let them see you sweat. Carla's words echoed in my skull. Then the chime above the front door rang, making me jump so high I nearly tripped over my own feet. You ever have those moments when your life swings on a hinge, and you're balanced between the old normal you knew and the new normal you want to deny with every fiber of your being? That's how I felt standing behind that grimy counter on my first night, alone with a list of creepy rules, trying not to shake so badly that I dropped the coffee pot. It was late, sometime past midnight. I kept glancing at the clock on the wall, an old analog thing with a hairline crack across the glass, half expecting it to jump forward or backward in time. The shift log sat near the register, a battered spiral notebook that smelled faintly of old coffee grounds. I remembered rule number 1 in detail. At midnight, a second summary prints from the register. Place a personal photograph in the safe right after. Not that I had many personal photographs left. Linda had taken most of them, except for the one in my wallet of us smiling at Virginia Beach before everything went sideways. Don't fixate on it, Ray. I told myself that 1,000 times, but my eyes kept drifting to the printer. Then, at around 12:20 a.m., my heart hammered at the quiet ring of the door's bell. A figure walked in, wearing a coat 2 sizes too large. Evening, I said, with what I hoped passed for casual cheer. He didn't reply. He just stared with eyes too glassy. Then he ambled up to the candy aisle and started rummaging. Just a normal customer, right? I repeated it like a prayer. Need any help? I ventured, stepping out from behind the counter. He turned abruptly, and in that glow, I saw the corner of his mouth twitch up into something that wasn't exactly a smile. I'm looking for, His voice was gravelly and slow, like he had to remember how human speech worked. Chocolate bars? We had an entire shelf of them, but they were mostly dusty relics. I gestured. We've got a few brand. Are they fresh? He interrupted, tilting his head at an angle that made his neck tendons stick out like cables under his skin. I forced a smile that felt all wrong. I can't guarantee their shelf life, but they're here. Why am I describing candy like it's an endangered species? Do they still have souls in them? He asked, his tone weirdly casual, as if inquiring about nutritional content. My blood went cold. Excuse me? His eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. The chocolates. Some preserve the essence of joy when made. Others are hollow, like so many things. He ran a finger along the dusty shelf. I prefer the ones that remember happiness. I felt sweat forming at my hairline. We just sell regular chocolate bars, sir. He clutched 3 bars to his chest, then brought them to the counter. I like sweetness, he murmured, as if it was a profound statement. Takes the bitterness away. Some nights I need that more than others. He leaned closer, and I caught a scent like old pennies. Don't you find the night bitter sometimes, Raymond? I hadn't told him my name. My hand hovered over the register, suddenly heavy as lead. Sure. The last thing I wanted was to telegraph how clueless and terrified I was. He placed a single coin on the counter. It looked old, dull gold with unreadable text. "Keep the change," he said, eyes shining with some internal mania. "It once belonged to someone who forgot to pay their toll. Now they're always paying, somewhere out there." He tapped his temple. Funny how that works. For a split second, I remembered the rule about intangible payments, something about paying with regrets or borrowed dreams. But a coin was tangible, right? This is probably fine. My mind was too rattled to recall if there was a specific line about ancient currency, so I hesitated, then forced a laugh. "We usually take US dollars or a card. Sorry, buddy." His expression darkened. "You don't want this," he said quietly. "Trust me. Some currencies buy more than goods. They buy forbearance." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Take the coin, Raymond. Or take my advice and walk away from this place before dawn. There are worse things than being alone with your failures. I've seen them. I wear their marks." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a forearm covered in what looked like burn scars, except they formed distinct patterns, like words from a nightmare half remembered. My throat went dry. I can't accept foreign currency. Store policy." He snatched the coin up, rummaged in his coat, and produced an actual $5 bill, crumpled, stained with what might have been mud or something darker. "Very well. Some warnings can't be purchased. They must be earned." His pupils contracted to pinpoints. "You'll earn yours soon enough." I rang him up, handed over the chocolate. He left, not a single goodbye, the bell tinkling in his wake. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That was it. My first weird customer. No monstrous demands, no intangible deals, but it set the tone. After that, I started suspecting everything and everyone who walked through that door. Is this the overly polite type? Will this next person beg me for a child's drawing? Is the shift log about to come alive? At one point during the night, I swear I heard whispering near the slushy machine, but when I went to check, it was just a faint mechanical hiss. A stray cat meowed outside by the dumpster, eyes reflecting the flickering neon and almost giving me another panic attack. While my night shift ended free from cosmic horror, for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to leave. So instead of driving to find a motel, I explored the back room and found a threadbare cot tucked behind some shelves. When I lay down, exhaustion hit me like a freight train. But when I closed my eyes, I saw the strange customer's burn-marked arm. What had he meant about worse things than being alone with your failures? I must have drifted off eventually because I jerked awake to the sound of someone rifling through papers. The clock on the wall read 4:30 p.m. I'd slept through most of the day. As I crept forward towards the sound, to my relief, I saw Carla standing behind the counter, rummaging through a folder stuffed with old receipts and notes. "Carla?" I said, half in disbelief. She looked up, startled. For a moment she seemed about to bolt. Then her expression softened into a fatigued acceptance. "Couldn't stay away," she said, her voice hushed. "But I can't stay long." I approached carefully, noticing how gaunt she looked in the fading daylight. "I thought you'd quit." "I did," she replied, looking deeper into the folder. Her eyes flicked to me. "I needed to recover something. A personal item I left behind. The station. It holds on to things if you don't retrieve them fast." She paused, glancing nervously at the windows as if expecting to see something watching. "Things that are pieces of you. Things you can't afford to lose." Her words sent an uneasy chill through me. "Are you okay?" Her laugh was empty. "No, but that's normal here, right?" She lowered her voice. "Listen, I'm not supposed to be here. But I want to warn you, Ray. This place, it doesn't just change people. It peels them, layer by layer. The rules keep you alive, but they also bind you. Like a contract written in blood you didn't know you were shedding." "That's encouraging," I muttered. "So why not destroy the station? Burn it to the ground?" A flicker of something crossed her face. Fear, or maybe resignation. "It doesn't burn. People have tried. You can burn the walls, the pumps, but the heart of it remains. and you'll bring something's wrath down on you if you try." She leaned in, her breath smelling of coffee gone sour. "The man who tried last, I saw him afterward. His skin was turned inside out, Ray. But he was still alive, still conscious, begging for someone to end it. His suffering, it fed this place for weeks. Jesus, the entire town." She continued, her voice barely audible. "Well, let's just say there's a reason it's still standing. This station, it's like a pressure valve. It channels things that would otherwise spill over. Break it, and who knows what floods in." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Sometimes I wonder if that would be better. A quick annihilation instead of this slow bleeding." I thought about the rules tucked in my back pocket. "So, who wrote them?" Carla shrugged. "They've existed in some form for decades, maybe longer. Dempsey refines them, or whoever's acting as vessel. But you can't just change them on a whim, or it unleashes consequences." "Dempsey, the manager?" I recalled the word manager from the job ad. "When do I meet him?" She shook her head. "He'll find you if he needs to. Avoid that if you can. He's not exactly human anymore." She stopped, pressing a hand to her mouth as if she'd said too much. "He consumes what the station gathers. It changes a person." "What do you mean not human?" I pressed. Her eyes darted to the windows again. "I used to think I could make this place safer. I tried to tweak the rules, refused to serve certain customers. The station rebelled. My own nightmares got worse. Then people started turning up at night, banging on my windows, leaving black footprints that smelled like burning hair. Children with too many teeth, whispering my name." She found a small Polaroid picture in the folder of a smiling group of people in front of the gas station. I recognized Carla, looking younger and happier, arms around two other employees. She snatched it up, eyes moist with tears, then tucked it into her jacket pocket. I needed this back, my last piece of them. "What happened to them?" I asked, almost not wanting to know. Carla's face contorted with grief. "Marcus broke rule number 6. A little girl gave him a drawing. He thought it was sweet. Put it on the wall behind the counter. By morning," she swallowed hard. "By morning, he was in the drawing instead of here. Still is, I think. I can see him sometimes pounding on the paper from the inside when I close my eyes. And the other one?" I nodded toward the photo. "Ellie." Carla's voice cracked. "She was kind. Too kind. Broke rule number 4. Someone was crying in the bathroom, begging for help. Ellie went in. She looked down at her hands. What came out wearing her skin wasn't Ellie anymore. It asked too many questions about pain." Her breathing quickened. "Dempsey had to take care of it. Said it was a mercy." Before I could ask what take care of it meant, she put her hand on my shoulder. "Stick to the rules, Ray. And if they shift, be ready. You can't run from what's here. You can only survive it." With that cryptic farewell, she left as abruptly as she'd come, disappearing into an old beater truck that rattled away down the highway. I'd barely had time to process her warnings when the phone behind the counter jangled, its ring too loud in the empty store. I hesitated, then picked up the receiver. "Hello?" Static crackled on the line, then a voice spoke. Carla's voice, though it sounded wrong, like she was talking underwater. "I forgot to tell you about rule number 1, Ray. The midnight receipt you can't read alone." "You just left," I said, confused. "Why didn't you?" "When it prints," she continued, ignoring my question, "something reads it at the same time as you. Something hungry. It sees through your eyes, learns what you know." Her voice became more distorted. "I made a mistake just now. Told you too much. It'll know." A high-pitched whine cut through her words, and I jerked the receiver away from my ear. Then suddenly, the door chime rang. My second shift had begun. At first, the evening crawled forward with excruciating slowness. A few truckers stopped for gas, barely speaking as they paid. Their eyes never quite met mine, as if they knew this place was wrong but couldn't put it into words. As midnight approached, my anxiety spiraled tighter. I kept checking the register's printer, expecting it to suddenly spring to life. At 11:58, the overhead lights dimmed momentarily, then brightened again, and the coffee maker in the corner gurgled as if something was moving through its pipes. Then, at exactly midnight, the printer whirred to life. I stepped back involuntarily as it spat out the normal daily receipt, sales totals, inventory adjustments, the mundane data of commerce. But it didn't stop there. The machine continued to hum, a second paper slowly emerging like a pale tongue. I should have walked away, should have remembered Carla's warning. But some morbid fascination kept me rooted in place as the second printout unfurled. Transaction number 666, intangible payment. Item, Raymond Bowers, partial soul fragment. Warning, soul fragmentation accelerates with each exposure to the void. Current integrity, 89%. Recommend immediate strengthening through acquisition of others' pain. The rest of the text blurred, the letters seeming to crawl across the page like insects. My stomach lurched as if I'd stepped off a cliff. That was my name. My soul. The receipt was talking about me. I remembered the addendum. If you do read it alone, place a personal photograph in the safe. Something in that printout sees you when you're by yourself. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead as I realized my mistake. I'd read it alone. And now something was watching through my eyes, crawling into the spaces between my thoughts. I fumbled beneath the counter for the safe, my fingers clumsy with panic. The dial spun under my hand as I tried to remember the combination Carla had scribbled on a sticky note. 42, 17, 33. The door swung open, revealing a small empty chamber lined with what looked like tarnished copper. I grabbed my wallet, pulling out that one wrinkled photo of me and Linda on our honeymoon. We were smiling, arms around each other on a beach at sunset. Before the arguments, before the drinking, before she called me worthless in front of the divorce lawyer. A memory of happiness that tasted like ash now. Sorry, Linda, I mumbled, placing the photo inside. Guess you're still getting dragged into my messes. As I closed the safe door, a voice spoke directly behind my ear. A fair trade. I spun around, heart hammering. But the store was empty. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling a strange hollow sensation, as if something inside me had been scooped out. The receipt had mentioned soul fragmentation. Had I just lost another piece? The thought made me dizzy as I slumped against the counter, breathing hard. Is anyone there? I called out, my voice embarrassingly weak. Silence answered me. But in that silence, I swore I could hear something listening. The phone rang again, making me jump. I snatched it up, desperate for human contact. Hello? Nothing but static at first. Then faintly, a child's voice. I can see you, Mr. Ray. I can see inside your soul now. There's so much empty space to fill. I slammed the receiver down, bile rising in my throat. In that moment, a dark liquid began to seep from under the safe door. Not blood, but something thicker, with an iridescent sheen like oil on water. It formed a small puddle on the floor, then slowly retracted, pulling back into the safe as if being drawn in by suction. The puddle left something behind. A small, perfectly formed tooth. A child's molar, gleaming white under the lights. I gagged, stumbling away from the counter. What the hell was happening? What had I unleashed by reading that receipt alone? And why did it take my photo of Linda? The store's radio, which had been playing soft static all night, suddenly crackled to life. Through waves of interference, I heard Linda's voice, distorted but unmistakable. Ray? Where am I, Ray? It's so dark in here. I yanked the radio's plug from the wall, but her voice continued, growing more frantic. Something's in here with me, Ray. Something with too many. The voice cut off with a wet, tearing sound. I backed away until I hit the wall, sliding down to the floor. The night stretched ahead of me, endless hours until dawn. And I'd already broken the first rule. I must have dozed off despite my terror, because I jumped back to life to the sound of the door chime. A man waltzed into the gas station shop with a broad grin plastered on his face. Middle-aged, wearing khakis and a sweater vest, with that kind of forced cheer you see on real estate agents in commercials. Hello there, friend, he practically sang. My goodness, this place is a beacon in the dark, wouldn't you say? He swiveled his head, beaming at the dusty shelves. So tidy in here. Don't you keep it immaculately clean? I blinked, cold recognition washing over me. Rule number 2. Beware the overly polite customer. If you get more than 3 compliments about coffee or service, switch to the blue jug. He was already showering compliments about the station's cleanliness. That might count as 1. Or 2, depending on how we measure. Welcome, I said, forcing a polite nod. Can I help you? He gazed at the coffee station, nostrils flaring. My lord, that coffee aroma is exquisite. Best I've ever smelled, truly. He took an exaggerated sniff, eyes rolling in delight, revealing too much white. Compliment number 1, or was it number 2? Sure, I said, swallowing. We, brew it fresh. Sometimes I didn't add. Usually, it sat for hours. He practically skipped to the pot, poured himself a large cup. Then, with wide eyes, he sipped. Oh wow, that is simply magnificent, he moaned, the sound disturbingly loud. A masterpiece in a paper cup. I must commend you. You folks know your coffee. Absolutely the best in the whole state, perhaps the entire country. Compliments number 2, number 3, maybe even number 4 if we're counting each sentence. A chill slid down my spine. The rule is triggered if they go over 3 compliments. That meant I needed to serve him from the blue jug. Carla's instructions had said, don't let them keep drinking the normal coffee. They'll demand too much. Glad you like it, I managed, stepping behind the counter. My eyes flicked to the battered metal thermos with flaking blue paint. I hadn't dared open it yet, but Carla's note insisted it was crucial for stopping these polite ones from something. Want another cup to go? I suggested, mustering the friendliest tone I could. He leaned forward eagerly, smiling so wide his cheeks seemed about to split, revealing glimpses of gum line that extended too far back. Would I ever? My, aren't you the most accommodating fellow? His eyes glinted with a strange hunger. I could drink this coffee all night. It fills the hollow parts, you see. The empty spaces where courtesy should live. I grabbed the blue jug from its hiding spot, unscrewed the cap. A wave of pungent steam drifted out. Coffee, yes, but tinted with something swampy and faintly sweet, like overripe fruit left in a damp cellar. My stomach churned. What is in this stuff? But I forced a steady hand, filling his second cup. He sniffed it once, brows furrowing, but then took a hearty gulp. A low hum of satisfaction rumbled in his throat, then changed pitch, becoming something like a whine of pain. That's richer, earthier. His voice cracked slightly, as if something in the brew caught in his windpipe. It tastes like sunsets where no one died. I waited, tense. Then he gave me a nod, a thin line of black liquid trailing from the corner of his mouth. This is, yes. He swayed a bit, eyes half-lidded. I can feel the courtesy running through my veins, filling the void where my conscience used to scream. That was about enough weirdness for me. That'll be $1.75, I said, stepping back, trying to keep my voice neutral. He set the cup on the counter, searching for some loose change. His hand shook, droplets of that strange coffee splashing. Here, he murmured, placing a handful of coins that clinked like tiny bones. Thank you. You've been too kind. What are you? I blurted, immediately regretting the question. His smile faltered, revealing teeth stained black from the coffee. Just a man who forgot how to be human properly. His eyes, suddenly lucid, locked onto mine. We all have our hungers, Ray. Mine is for the performance of decency. Others crave far worse. He leaned in, lowering his voice. The blue jug gives us what we need while sparing you what we'd take. Remember that. Not all rules are cruel. Some are merciful. A flicker of regret or fear danced across his features. Then, with a weak grin, he turned and left, stumbling into the darkness. I let out a breath. I guess it worked. But I couldn't shake the feeling I'd just fed a monster. I picked up the blue jug cautiously, giving it a gentle swirl. The liquid inside sloshed thickly, leaving a residue on the sides that slowly crawled back into the main body. Whatever this stuff was, it wasn't just coffee. As the station fell into an uneasy quiet, I busied myself restocking shelves, more to keep my hands occupied than from any real need. The candies were ancient, the beef jerky fossilized, but arranging them gave me the illusion of normalcy. Around 2 a.m., I heard a distinct rustling from behind the locked restroom door. The sign had flipped to occupied, even though I hadn't noticed anyone go in. Rule number 4 flashed in my mind. No favors in the restroom. If someone begs or acts desperate in there, don't engage. I should walk away right now, I thought. But my feet carried me closer to that door. As I approached, I heard muffled sobs. A voice, female, young, shaky, was whispering, "Help me. Oh God, help me, I can't find the door." Then the sound of knuckles rapping on metal. "Please open up, I'm so lost." My pulse skyrocketed. "Don't open it, don't respond, don't do anything." But the sobbing sounded heartbreakingly real, a genuine plea for help. How could I ignore that? What kind of person would I be? "Hello?" I said, immediate regret flooding me. The voice quieted, then a rasping breath. Is someone there?" Couldn't help it. I leaned down to see if the door was locked from the inside. Under the narrow gap, I glimpsed a pair of feet. They were bare, pale, with dark bruises or stains around the ankles. I saw them shuffle, turning left, then right, as if disoriented. The voice whimpered, "I think I cut myself. I see shapes in the mirror. They're telling me." She trailed off, and a low moan followed. "They're telling me to open my skin so they can climb inside." My heart hammered. Keep the rule, don't do it. So I remained silent this time. The door handle rattled, but it didn't open. Her sobs turned guttural. "It hurts," she whispered. I can't. My reflection's face is all wrong. Its mouth is moving on its own." I stepped backward, chilled. Something about her voice was taking on an echo, as though multiple throats were speaking at once, layered over each other. "She's not human. Not anymore. Please," she begged, her voice cracking. "I just need someone to tell me I'm not alone. That's all. Just acknowledge me. Say my name." "I don't know your name," I said, breaking my silence again like an idiot. A pause, then a soft laugh that didn't sound right, too wet, too deep. "But you do, Ray. You've always known it. How do you know my name?" "The same way I know about Linda, about what you did to her." The voice was changing, becoming familiar in a way that made my blood run cold. The way you'd drink and scream. The names you called her. The time you raised your hand. "I never hit her," I snapped, though shame burned in my gut. I'd come close, one terrible night. I'd grabbed her arm too hard, leaving bruises the shape of my fingers that lasted for weeks. The beginning of the end. "No, but you wanted to. That darkness in you, Ray. It's delicious. Let me out, and I'll help you embrace it. We could do such beautiful damage together." Then a slow scraping sound. Maybe nails dragging across the metal door from the inside. I half expected the door to fling open, some monstrous shape lunging out, but nothing happened. The scraping stopped. Silence. I waited 5 full minutes, adrenaline screaming at me to run. Then I slowly tested the handle. It swung open effortlessly. The bathroom was empty. The single overhead bulb flickered, revealing a sink with a dirty mirror. And scrawled in dripping black across the glass were words that looked like they'd been written with a finger dipped in tar. "What drives you to break rules, Ray? Is it your curiosity, or is it your need to prove you're still good?" My stomach lurched. The stench of stale water and rot hung in the air, mingled with something else. The faint perfume Linda used to wear, the one I'd bought her for our 3rd anniversary. I slammed the door shut and locked the restroom from the outside, ignoring how bizarre that was for a public gas station. As I returned to the counter, my legs shaky, the register's printer suddenly whirred to life, spitting out a short receipt. I didn't touch it at first, remembering rule number 1. But this wasn't midnight, so cautiously, I picked it up. Integrity update. Soul fragment at 84%. Corruption accelerating. Recommend immediate corrective action. I crumpled it in my fist. What was happening to me? What did soul fragment mean? And what kind of corrective action could possibly help? The bathroom door rattled once, violently, then fell silent. I didn't look back. The hours crept by with painful slowness. I found myself checking the clock obsessively, as if time itself might be another rule I could accidentally break. Then, just when I thought the night couldn't get any stranger, the big roadside sign outside began to flicker. $3.09, $5.50, $8.03. I remembered rule number 5, mid-shift price sign change. Sometimes around 2 or 3 a.m., the big price sign outside will flicker to a random number. That means we're about to get a special customer who pays with intangible forms, like regrets or borrowed dreams. You must adjust the sign to match or they'll roam inside your mind instead. I rushed to the old metal control box behind the counter labeled price sign. The dial was stiff, needing a strong twist to match the sign's final reading. It stopped at $6.66. That was strange. Pump number 3. $6.66, that's a separate rule. But now the sign is also $6.66? A half second later, the sign flickered again, landing on $4.13. I exhaled in relief. That was better, right? The instant the digits aligned, the station's interior lights dimmed, then surged, and a low hum rattled the glass doors. Outside, a battered car pulled into the lot. The occupant killed the engine and stepped out. She was tall, wearing a black coat, face obscured by the reflection of lights in the window. When she entered, a wave of cold air followed, making the hair on my arms stand up. Her voice was low and resonant when she spoke. I need intangible fuel. She set a slender black candle on the counter, unlit. This is my vessel of exchange. I offer memories, vivid ones, for the supply. Vessel of exchange. My mouth felt dry. The rule had said, they pay with intangible forms, like regrets or borrowed dreams. You must let them if the sign flickers. That was part of the special transaction. If I refused, they'd rummage in my thoughts instead. Possibly. I didn't want that. I forced an even tone. Sure. We have intangible stock in the back, I guessed, remembering Carla's hints that the station stored weird items. Payment first? She nodded, touched the black candle with her fingertip. Immediately, it lit on its own. I swore I heard muffled sobs and laughter in the flame, like trapped voices. That is my memory of childhood birthdays, she whispered. The last remnants of joy I had before the world turned sour. A slice of innocence shaped by balloons and sweet frosting. It's pure, powerful. I'm letting it go. Her eyes glimmered with sadness. Then she leaned forward, voice dropping lower. Do you remember joy, Raymond Bowers? Real joy, untainted by the knowledge of what comes after? I swallowed hard, unsettled by her use of my full name. I think so. You're lying. She ran a pale finger along the counter's edge. You trade in pieces of yourself just to keep breathing. Just like I do. The difference is, I know what I'm losing. Her eyes, when they met mine, were filled with a terrible compassion. Would you like to know what it costs you to stand here each night? What fragments you've already surrendered without realizing? A part of me balked. This was unethical, horrifying. But the station demanded it. I stepped from behind the counter, hesitant. I'll accept your payment. Wait here. Then I found a dusty steel door labeled storage and looked inside to see if I could sense where intangible goods might be. My flashlight beam revealed crates stacked to the ceiling, each stenciled with odd symbols. Regret, 1979. Jealousy, 1986. Silent Rage, 2001. So these are emotional resources, packaged up. Great. I spied a row labeled Dreams Miscellaneous. That seemed like the best guess for intangible fuel. I slid one out, half expecting it to moan or rattle. But it was just a sealed container, faintly humming under my hand. Returning to the woman, I set the container on the counter. The black candle's flame twisted, casting shapes that looked like children's faces for an instant. She touched the container reverently. "Thank you," she said in that resonant tone. "Your station continues to provide." "What happens to your memories?" I found myself asking. "The ones in the candle?" "They fuel something else's existence," she replied, her expression grave. "Something that needs the taste of genuine happiness to maintain its disguise among us." A small, sad smile touched her lips. "Better my memories than a child's future, wouldn't you say?" The moral implications hit me like a punch to the gut. "Wait, you mean if you didn't provide these memories, this thing would take them from those who haven't lived long enough to lose them naturally?" She nodded. "Every sacrifice has its purpose, Raymond. Even yours." I placed the candle in a metal drawer used for intangible exchanges, the same way you'd store critical documents. After bowing her head and leaving the gas station, outside, I saw the woman pouring some contents from the container, though I never saw what intangible fuel looked like, into her car's gas tank. Then she drove off, the engine purring with an unearthly hum. Transaction complete. At last, by 4 a.m., the store was dead quiet. No more bizarre customers. But I had one final rule to check. Count the customers at closing. I wasn't exactly sure how to do that. Did I just walk around? The slip from the register said we had 7 transactions after midnight. That meant 7 customers. Right? The overly polite guy, coffee. The intangible buyer, black candle. A random trucker who got chips and left. Another trucker just buying gas. A pale woman who bought cigarettes without speaking. An old man who stood by the magazine rack for 20 minutes before buying gum. Someone else? My memory was fuzzy here. I realized I might have lost track, so I double-checked the log. Sure enough, there were 8 entries, but I only remember 7 customers. Something was off. My heart pounded against my ribs. If the total doesn't match, one is still here. So I grabbed a flashlight and ventured among the aisles, checking behind shelves of cereal and dusty motor oil. I found nothing in the snack aisle, nothing near the magazine rack. Then, as I swung my flashlight past the cooler, I caught a glimpse of movement. A shape flitted behind the beverage fridge, too quick to get a good look. "Hello?" My voice trembled. No response. I approached cautiously. The fridge's hum was deafening in the silence. Slowly, I crouched, shining the beam under the fridge unit. For a split second I saw something like a spidery hand, then it was gone. I forced back a yelp, stumbling away. Something's definitely here. The rule said, if you don't find it before leaving, it might follow you home. And it has the patience of centuries. That was enough motivation to keep searching. In the next aisle, I scanned behind each product display, my mind conjuring images of monstrous faces lurking behind racks of stale gum. Then, just as I passed an old cardboard stand for local tourist attractions, I heard a rattling breath. Peering around the display, I saw a figure crouched on the floor, arms wrapped around its knees. It wore a tattered jacket, and my flashlight beam revealed eyes that were disturbingly large, unfocused, set slightly too far apart on a narrow face. The figure, man, creature, looked at me, lips parting in a silent hiss. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, it bolted. I staggered back, nearly losing my grip on the flashlight. "Stop!" I shouted, surprising myself with my boldness. "You can't stay here." It froze mid-movement, turning its head 180 degrees to stare at me. Then, in a voice like rustling paper, it spoke. But I was invited. Cold sweat trickled down my back. "What? No one invited you." "You did." It turned fully now, and I saw its face clearly for the first time. A face that was almost human, except the features seemed to shift subtly, like they weren't fixed in place. When you read the receipt alone, when you broke rule number 1, it pointed a too long finger at my chest. A piece of me for a piece of you. A fair exchange. "What are you?" I whispered. Its mouth stretched. "I am the space between transactions, the void in every exchange." It took a step closer, movement jerky like a puppet with tangled strings. I am what you're becoming, Raymond Bowers, bit by bit, night by night. I backed away, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. Get out of my store. Your store? It laughed, a sound like glass breaking. You're just the latest vessel, the newest hollow man to tend the threshold. It cocked its head. But I'll go. For now. The rule demands it, after all. It leaned in, mouth near my ear. But remember, I have a piece of you now, and pieces want to be whole. With that, it skittered toward the entrance, movements unnaturally quick, limbs bending at wrong angles. The automatic doors opened with a hiss, and it disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. As I returned to the counter and slumped onto the stool, adrenaline still coursing through my veins, the register spat out another spontaneous receipt. Soul integrity, 79%. Warning, critical threshold approaching. Vessel compromise imminent. I crumpled it again in my fist, suddenly too tired to care. Dawn was breaking outside, pale light seeping through the grimy windows. I'd survived another night, but at what cost? As I prepared to lock up, I caught my reflection in the glass door, and for a split second, my face seemed to shift, features sliding subtly out of alignment before settling back into place. I blinked hard, telling myself it was just exhaustion, just a trick of the light, but deep down, I knew something was changing inside me. Something was taking root in the spaces where pieces of me used to be. Again, I couldn't bring myself to leave the station and spend money on a motel, so as if some invisible tether was binding me to this cursed gas station, I curled up on that same threadbare cot in the back room, letting exhaustion drag me under. At 7:30 p.m. I woke with a start, heart hammering to the sound of a car door slamming outside. Realizing I'd slept through most of the day again, though my body felt like it hadn't rested at all, I stumbled to the front of the store, rubbing my eyes. Apparently a storm had rolled in while I slept, rain lashing the windows in sheets, lightning occasionally illuminating the darkening sky. A sleek black Mercedes had pulled into the lot, water spraying from its tires. The driver's door opened, revealing a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit, hair slicked back in a style that screamed corporate. He wore a predatory grin as he strode toward the entrance. When the door chimed and he stepped inside, the air pressure in the store seemed to drop. "Raymond Bowers," he said, voice smooth as polished steel. "At last we meet." He shook rain from his coat, each droplet seeming to evaporate before it hit the floor. "Carla spoke highly of your potential." I stiffened. "You're Dempsey." He inclined his head slightly. "Indeed, I handle the station's deeper administration." He surveyed the store with cool calculation, eyes lingering on the safe behind the counter. "You've been keeping busy, I see. 2 nights already, breaking rules, making trades." A chill ran down my spine. "I've been trying to follow the rules. It's not exactly straightforward." He laughed, a sound like ice cracking. "The rules are perfectly straightforward, Ray. It's people who are complicated." He approached the counter with measured steps. "Carla left in quite a hurry, didn't she? Mentioned something about not being able to handle it anymore." "She seemed scared," I said cautiously. "She was weak," Dempsey replied, his tone casual but eyes sharp. "She started interfering with certain transactions, refusing intangible deals, you see, imposing her own morality on the station's hunger." He ran a finger along the counter, leaving a trace of frost that quickly melted. "It created friction with our special clientele." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face in a harsh strobe. For a split second, his features seemed wrong. Too angular, too symmetrical, like a perfect but flawed imitation of a human face. You, on the other hand, seem to be handling it better than expected. Soul integrity at 79% after only 2 nights? Impressive resilience. "You know about that?" I asked. He smiled. "I know everything that happens in my station, Ray. Every transaction, every rule bent or broken." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Every piece of soul fragmenting away." I backed up slightly. "What do you want from me?" "To see how you handle tonight's traffic. I'll be observing." If you pass the test, perhaps we'll make your position more official. He patted my shoulder as though we were old pals, his touch cold enough to burn. Relax. Just another night. Serve them. Honor the rules. Should be easy. Then he withdrew a folded piece of paper from his breast pocket. Oh, and here's a small addendum. Fresh instructions. My heart sank as I unfolded it. Rule number 8, new. When a customer arrives with a jar of something that rattles, do not accept it unless they provide a piece of their own flesh. If they refuse, kindly escort them out, or they'll linger and feed on your doubts. And if they do provide flesh, store it in the freezer, far from the intangible stock, or you risk cross-contamination. I stared at it, horrified. What the hell? You want me to collect pieces of people? Dempsey just smiled. An old tradition, necessary for tonight's special visitors. The station hungers for substance sometimes, not just shadows. That's monstrous, I said, my voice barely a whisper. His expression hardened slightly. Morality is a luxury, Ray. A luxury you surrendered the moment you read that midnight receipt alone. He gestured around the store. This place exists at a crossroads of need. Some needs are merely less conventional than others. And if I refuse? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Dempsey's smile vanished. Then the station finds a new vessel. One more compliant. He leaned in, his breath unnaturally cold against my face. And what's left of you joins our special inventory. He stepped back, crossing his arms as the first drops of rain began to patter against the windows. The choice is yours, of course. Free will and all that. His smile returned, sharp as a razor. Though I think we both know what you'll choose. The desperate always do. Thunder rolled overhead as the storm intensified. Night was falling, and with it came the knowledge that I was trapped, not just by Dempsey's threats, but by my own morbid curiosity and the strange growing emptiness inside me that seemed to resonate with this place. Dempsey took a seat by the window, posture perfect, eyes never leaving me. Shall we begin? I believe your first customer is arriving now. The door chimed, and another long night at the station began. The storm intensified, lightning slicing the sky open like a wound. Rain battered the roof in a relentless cacophony. Power flickered twice, each time making me wonder if we'd lose lights altogether. Dempsey stayed in the corner, silent, watchful. An hour into this tense standoff, the first special visitor arrived. A man in a soaked trench coat lurched inside, water dripping from his hat. In his left hand he held a glass jar. Something inside it rattled. Bones? Teeth? Evening, he rasped, approaching the counter. I cleared my throat. Hello. He set the jar down. In the glow of the overhead bulbs, I saw it was filled with small white lumps, definitely teeth, some still trailing dark threads of gum tissue. My stomach churned. I need more, he muttered, voice strained. My children are hungry. These can be my payment. Please. I recalled the new rule number 8 about refusing personal items that rattle. Do not accept it unless they provide a piece of their own flesh. The man's eyes, bloodshot and pleading, locked onto mine. My children. They're changing. They need these to complete the transition. His voice cracked. I've already given so much. Look. He pulled back his sleeve. Entire chunks of his arm were missing, healed over with puckered tissue. I cut pieces of myself for months. It wasn't enough. Now they need stronger medicine. A lump formed in my throat. I glanced at Dempsey. He raised an eyebrow, silently challenging me to follow the rule. I have no choice. The station requires an additional offering, I said, voice quavering. A piece of your flesh. The man's eyes widened in disbelief. More flesh? I've already given pounds of myself. He gestured to his scarred arm. What more can I possibly? It must be fresh, I said, the words tasting like poison. That's the rule. Behind me, Dempsey clicked his tongue. You heard him, he murmured. Fresh or nothing. The man's face contorted in anguish. My children will die without this exchange. Do you understand? They're halfway through the change. If they don't complete it, his voice broke, you'd be sentencing them to an existence of eternal hunger. I felt physically ill. I don't make the rules, but you enforce them, he whispered, eyes brimming with tears. You become what you serve, don't you see? Just like I'm becoming. He stopped, swallowing hard. Like I'm becoming whatever my children need me to be. Lightning flashed outside, thunder rattling the windows. I'm sorry, I said, the words hollow even to my own ears. But those are the terms. The man stared at me for a long moment. Then, he rolled up his sleeve further. Very well. He reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a small rusted pocket knife. Before I could react, he pressed the blade to his forearm and cut, a swift, practiced motion that spoke of terrible familiarity. I gasped as blood welled up from the wound. Jesus, stop. But he was already peeling back a strip of his own skin, face rigid with controlled agony. For my children, he whispered through clenched teeth. Always for my children. He placed the bloody strip on the counter beside the jar of teeth. The scent of copper filled the air, making my stomach heave. Dempsey leaned forward, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Will this suffice? The man asked, voice tight with pain. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Dempsey stepped forward smoothly. It will do nicely, he said, producing a small vial from his suit pocket. He collected the strip of flesh, sealing it inside. The station accepts your sacrifice. The man nodded jerkily, pressing a handkerchief to his bleeding arm. And my children's medicine? Dempsey gestured to me. The jar, Ray. Take it to the special inventory. My hands shook as I picked up the jar of teeth. They shifted inside, clicking against each other with an almost musical quality. This way, I managed, leading him to the storage room. Among the crates of intangibles, I found a shelf labeled Physical Transitions, Ongoing. I placed the jar there, trying not to think about what these teeth would be used for, or what kind of transition the man's children were undergoing. Thank you, the man whispered. They'll sleep easier tonight. What's happening to them? I asked, unable to stop myself. He smiled faintly, a terrible sadness in his expression. They're becoming suitable vessels. For what? I don't know yet. But the hunger never stops, and the changes keep coming. He touched the bloodied handkerchief on his arm. Eventually there won't be enough of me left to cut away. And then what? Then they'll find another donor. His eyes, when they met mine, held a warning. Just as this place is finding you. He left without another word, disappearing into the storm. I returned to the main store, stomach churning with disgust, at the situation, at Dempsey, but mostly at myself for participating. Dempsey approached, clapping slowly. You did well, Ray. The contract remains intact. You obeyed the rule. His grin was a mile wide. Keep it up. I just mutilated a man, I hissed. Made him cut off part of himself. No, Dempsey corrected, his tone academic. He chose to cut himself. You merely stated the terms of exchange. He straightened his already perfect tie. That's the beauty of this place, Ray. Everyone who comes here makes their own choices, their own sacrifices. His eyes glittered, just as you're making yours. I wanted to argue, to rage against his cold logic. But deep down, I recognized the truth in his words. I could have refused, could have walked away. But where would I go? What would I do? The emptiness in my life before finding this station yawned before me like an abyss. And somewhere deeper, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, was another truth. A part of me was fascinated by these exchanges, by the rules and their consequences, by the power I wielded behind this counter. What am I becoming? I whispered, more to myself than to Dempsey. He smiled as if he'd heard my thoughts. Something necessary, he replied. A guardian of thresholds, a collector of terrible choices. He glanced at his watch. And speaking of choices, I believe someone's about to make a dangerous one at pump number 3. Barely had I recovered from that confrontation when a car pulled up to pump number 3. My heart lurched. Rule number 3. Never let the meter go past $6.66. I shot Dempsey a look. He merely inclined his head as if to say, "Go handle it." A skinny figure in a hood hopped out, fumbling with the gas nozzle. The storm winds howled, splattering the side of the station with rain. Through the window, I watched the meter climb. $2, $3.50, $5.99. I should have gone out immediately, but the wind was fierce and fear rooted me. When the total hit $6, I forced myself outside, coat pulled tight against the rain, yelling over the gale. "Careful, pump number 3 acts up. Don't overfill." The figure ignored me, eyes fixed on the rolling numbers. At $6.25, they looked up, and I saw their face clearly for the first time. "Do you feel it?" they asked, voice barely audible over the storm. The thinning, the membrane stretching. $6.40 on the meter. Rain plastered my hair to my forehead. "Stop pumping," I called. "Please." The monster smiled. "But they're waiting. They're so hungry, Raymond. $6.50. They've been watching you through the cracks, admiring your dedication. $6.60. I lunged for the manual shutoff lever near the pump. "Don't." $6.66. The figure let out a shrill laugh and yanked the nozzle, resetting the pump. The digital display glitched, blinking 0.00, the storm-swept air suddenly tasting metallic, like ozone. Lightning struck a nearby tree, the crack resounding through my skull. And in that strobe I saw something behind the skinny figure. Shapes flickering like living shadows. Their eyes, or holes, were glowing with a dull red light. My lungs seized in terror. The figure, whether a person or a puppet to those shadows, turned to me fully. "They've come to see you," they said, voice distorting. "To thank you for your service." I tried to speak, but the wind tore the words away. The shapes behind them twitched, then lunged forward, gliding across the pavement in an unnervingly smooth motion. There were 3 of them, tall, featureless silhouettes with elongated limbs. I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the wet concrete. This is what you let in by letting it hit $6.66. The hollow ones gather. One of the shadow figures reached toward me, its arm, if it could be called an arm, extending, the edges fraying like black smoke. Where its hand should have been, there was only a swirling void. It spoke, not with sound, but directly into my mind. "Vessel, threshold guardian, feed us." In pure desperation, I fumbled with the manual lever, slamming it down even though the pump was already reset. A jolt of static electricity sparked, dancing over my hand. The hooded figure howled, an inhuman shriek that raised every hair on my body, and the shadows reeled backward as if forcibly pulled. "No," the figure screamed. "They're still hungry. They need to feed." They reached for me, fingers stretching towards me. "Just a taste of your essence, guardian. Just a morsel of your suffering." Rain battered harder, lightning flared. One of the shadow creatures lunged again, its mouth opening in the center of its featureless head, a circular void that expanded wider and wider, revealing rows of spinning darkness within. I scrambled backward, slipping on the wet concrete. My head cracked against the side of the pump, stars exploding in my vision. Through the haze of pain, I saw the shadow bend over me, that terrible void mouth descending. Then, unexpectedly, Dempsey was there. He stood between me and the creature, his posture relaxed but commanding. "Not this one," he said calmly. "He's still in transition, still under contract." The shadow figures paused, seeming to confer silently. The hooded person whimpered, dropping to their knees. "Please," they begged. They promised me peace if I brought them a fresh vessel. They promised an end to the dreams. Dempsey glanced at them dismissively. "Your bargain is with them, not with us. The station cannot interfere." He extended a hand to me. "Get up, Ray. You have other customers to attend to." I took his hand, cold as ice, and let him pull me to my feet. The shadow creatures had retreated slightly, hovering at the edge of the light from the station. Their attention seemed focused entirely on Dempsey now, a strange deference in their posture. "What are they?" I gasped. The hollow ones, Dempsey replied matter-of-factly. Entities that exist in the spaces between substance. They feed on certain frequencies of human experience. Fear, mainly, but also profound loss. He straightened his cuffs, somehow still immaculate despite the downpour. They're quite ancient, quite hungry, and quite fond of my hospitality. The hooded figure was sobbing now, curled into a fetal position on the wet pavement. Don't leave me with them, they pleaded. I've brought them so many vessels. Please. Dempsey ignored them, guiding me firmly back toward the station entrance. Rule number 3 exists for a reason, Ray, he said, voice sharp despite his smile. The hollow ones are manageable in small numbers, but they multiply quickly, and they're particularly drawn to vessels in transition. His eyes flicked to me meaningfully. Inside, I collapsed against the counter, shaking uncontrollably. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see the shadow figures surrounding the hooded person, their forms bending unnaturally as they closed in. The person's screams were muffled by the storm. Shouldn't we help them? I asked, voice cracking. Dempsey checked his reflection in a display case glass, adjusting his tie. They made their choice just as you made yours when you failed to prevent the meter from hitting $6.66. He turned to me, expression suddenly serious. You're learning, Ray, but not quickly enough. These rules exist for a reason, to maintain balance, to keep certain doors only partially open. What happens to that person? I pressed. They become feed, he said simply. Emotional sustenance. The hollow ones will extract every fear, every trauma, every moment of despair, leaving just enough awareness intact for the person to experience it all. He smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. It's quite efficient, really. Nothing wasted. I felt sick. That's monstrous. That's survival, Dempsey countered. For entities that predate your concept of morality by eons. He patted my shoulder. You should be thanking me, Ray. I just saved you from the same fate. Why? I demanded. Why protect me? His smile thinned. Because you're still useful, still learning your role. He gestured around the station. This place needs a guardian with just the right balance of desperation and curiosity. Someone willing to enforce rules they don't fully understand. His eyes locked onto mine. Someone like you. Outside, the hooded figure's screams had stopped. The shadowy entities had vanished, along with their victim. Only the empty car remained, driver's door still open, rain filling the interior. Dempsey glanced at his watch. The night is young, Ray, and we have more transactions to oversee. He returned to his seat by the window, crossing his legs elegantly. Try to follow the rules more carefully with the next one, okay? As the night pressed on, Dempsey calmly perused a magazine from the rack, humming a tuneless melody that set my teeth on edge. Then, at around 12:30, I heard the door beep. Another figure entered, dragging footsteps leaving wet marks on the linoleum. They wore a soaked hoodie, face obscured by shadow. I braced myself behind the counter. Welcome, I said carefully. No response. The figure meandered to the back aisle, knocking items off shelves with deliberate swipes. Loud crashes echoed through the store. My gut warned me. This is trouble. I glanced at Dempsey, who watched with mild amusement. Aren't you going to do something? I hissed at him. He raised an eyebrow. That's your job, Vessel. I'm merely an observer tonight. Finally, I mustered courage, walking over to the figure. Can I help you find something? They turned slowly. The hood slipped back a fraction, revealing white, papery skin with veins of black pulsing beneath. The eyes were wide, pupils pinpricks that dilated suddenly as they fixed on me. A shudder that might have been a breath rattled their chest. Then a voice that sounded layered, multiple tones at once, whispered, I'm looking for the one who reads receipts alone. My blood went cold. This was connected to rule number 1, to the mistake I'd made my first night. What do you want? To see what's left of you, they replied. To measure the hollowing. A hand emerged from the hoodie, long fingers, nails chipped and dirty, skin marble white with those same black veins. You broke the covenant. You invited us to look inside you. Now we need to check our property. "I'm not your property," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure came closer, moving in quick staccato bursts like animation with missing frames. "But pieces of you are. Fragments." My mind scrambled, scanning the rules. Which rule covers a half-possessed figure rummaging for a door? The figure was suddenly beside me, though I hadn't seen it move. "Your soul integrity drops with each hour you spend here," it whispered, mouth too close to my ear. "Soon you'll be hollow enough for one of us to wear. Just like her." Her? I stepped back, pulse racing. The woman. Carla. It giggled, a wet, unpleasant sound. She thought she could change the rules too. Thought she could save people from their choices. Its head rotated further than a human neck should allow. "Would you like to know what's left of her?" Dempsey's voice cut in smoothly from across the store. "Enough. This isn't why you're here." He approached with unhurried steps. "Ray, check the intangible crates. Our friend here likely needs a particular brand. Maybe a memory of boundaries, or a dream of locked doors." He winked at me, as though giving a helpful hint. I swallowed, nodded, and turned to the storage door. The figure followed, steps scraping against the linoleum. We entered the gloom of the back room. My flashlight trembled in my grip. "Wait here," I said, rummaging among the crates labeled boundaries, limitations, barriers. My eyes flicked over the archaic handwriting. Finally, I found a small container labeled Memory of Locked Doors, 1992. I tugged it out. "Is this what you need?" I asked softly. The figure reached out, skeletal hand trembling. "Yes," the layered voice rasped. "Gives me shape. Keeps me from falling through the thin places." They seized the container with a quiet moan, hugging it close. "Without boundaries, I leak, spread too thin across too many vessels." "How? Do you pay?" My words came out halting. The figure moved closer, their breath smelling of decaying leaves. "I pay in secrets." They placed a small wooden token on a nearby crate. The token shimmered, like it wasn't fully real. "Would you like to know a secret, Raymond Bowers? About what happens to guardians who fail?" I stared at the token, mesmerized by its shifting surface. "Tell me." The figure leaned in. "They become inventory, special stock, their experiences bottled and sorted, their fears labeled and shelved." It pointed a trembling finger at a dark corner of the storage room, where crates were stacked to the ceiling. "Check the oldest crates sometime. Read the names. You might recognize your predecessors." "Are you saying all the station managers end up cataloged?" It made that wet, giggling sound again. "Not just managers, customers, vessels, anyone who gives too much of themselves to this place." Its eyes, sunken and feverish, fixed on mine. "The station doesn't just take transactions, Raymond. It is the transaction. The ultimate exchange." It stroked the container lovingly. "But I've paid my price. These boundaries will hold me together for another cycle." "Your station can store secrets as currency, yes?" it asked. I hesitated. Carla did say intangible forms could be stored. "Yes, we'll keep it with the rest." Lightning flashed through the doorway to the main store. The figure's eyes flickered as if satisfied. "One last secret, freely given. Check the bottom drawer of the desk in the manager's office. There's a ledger there, a contract." It leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "The one who holds the ledger holds the station. The one who changes the ledger changes the rules." With the container clutched in its arms, it slid past me, heading back into the store. By the time I returned, it was gone, as if the storm had swallowed it whole. Dempsey looked mildly disappointed. That was anticlimactic. I was hoping they'd cause a fuss. He studied my face carefully. "What did it tell you in there?" I met his gaze steadily. "Nothing important. Just babbling about boundaries and thin places." His eyes narrowed slightly as if detecting the lie. "These entities are not to be trusted, Ray. They'll say anything to create discord between a station and its guardian." He straightened his jacket. "Remember, I'm the only reason you're still standing after that disaster at pump number 3. Fury bubbled in my chest, but I bit my tongue. "I'm going to check inventory," I said, needing a moment alone to process everything I'd learned. Dempsey nodded indulgently. By all means, but hurry back. I believe we're about to have another special visitor. As I ducked into the tiny break room for a moment, seeking a shred of calm, Dempsey let me go without comment. He seemed content to wander the aisles humming that discordant tune. The break room was cramped. A rusty sink in the corner dripped steadily, each drop hitting the stained basin with the rhythm of a funeral march. I sank onto an old folding chair, burying my face in my hands. Then I heard a whisper. Faint, female, right in my ear. "Ray, can you hear me?" I shot upright, heart leaping. "Carla?" Silence except for the dripping sink. I scanned the corners. Empty. Then the voice returned, like a breath on the back of my neck. "I'm sorry. I had no choice but to run. You have to find the ledger. You have to end this cycle." Goosebumps erupted along my arms. "Where are you?" I whispered, fighting panic. The lights blinked, and in that split-second darkness, I saw Carla's face in the metal sink reflection. Drawn, tired, eyes wide with fear. But something was wrong. Her features kept shifting slightly, as though they weren't fixed in place. Black veins pulsed beneath her too pale skin. "You're not really here," I said, backing away from the sink. "You're changed." "Not changed," the voice replied, sadness permeating every syllable. "Catalogued, shelved, part of the inventory now." The reflection wavered, like heat rising from asphalt. Dempsey couldn't let me leave with what I knew, with what I planned to do. "And what was that?" I asked, though part of me already suspected the answer. "Change the contract, break the cycle." The voice grew fainter, more distant. "The ledger binds the station to its purpose. Change the terms and you change the nature of the exchanges." Then I noticed something scribbled on the wall in permanent marker, half hidden by a stain. "There is a ledger in the manager's office. If you change the terms, you become the manager. If you fail, it devours you. Carla, be careful," the voice warned, growing fainter. "The station resists change. And Dempsey isn't just its guardian. He's its creation, its defense mechanism." "What do you mean?" I pressed, stepping closer to the sink again. The reflection was fading, Carla's features dissolving like wax melting. "He wears a human face, but there's nothing human inside anymore. Just hunger and rules and the need to maintain the status quo." Her eyes, the last part of her face still visible, fixed on mine with desperate intensity. "Don't trust what he offers you. Don't." The reflection vanished completely, leaving only my own face staring back at me. A heavy knock at the break room door made me jump. Dempsey's voice drifted through. "Ray, come out. Time for more action." He sounded amused, as if overhearing my every thought. I stepped out, finding Dempsey waiting, his smile pleasant but eyes calculating. "Feeling better?" he asked. "You've been under considerable stress." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just needed a moment." "Understandable." He gestured toward the front of the store. "Unfortunately, our customers don't wait for human frailty. There's someone at the back door who requires your attention." I nodded, already steeling myself for whatever fresh horror awaited me. But as I passed him, Dempsey caught my arm, his grip painfully cold. "One more thing, Ray," he said, voice dropping to a whisper. "The station talks to everyone differently, shows them what they want to see." His eyes bored into mine. "Don't mistake echoes for truths." The back door banged again, more insistently this time. Whatever waited there was growing impatient. I took a deep breath and headed toward the sound, feeling Dempsey's eyes on my back like ice picks. Taking a deep breath, I yanked the back door open. The storm had intensified. Rain fell in sheets so dense they distorted vision, lightning branching across the sky in jagged patterns that looked almost like writing. Soon as I opened that back door, a stench of rotten lilies hit me, sweet and nauseating at once. My flashlight illuminated a baby stroller leaning against the chain-link fence that enclosed the rear lot. The seat was empty, but a faint whimper came from somewhere behind it. I remembered rule number 6 about never accepting a child's drawing. This felt connected. I stepped out, rain immediately soaking through my shirt. "Hello?" Thunder boomed, drowning my voice. No response. Rain pelted my face, rivulets of water dripping into my eyes. Approaching the stroller, I saw muddy footprints around it, small, child-sized. They led away into the night, only to vanish abruptly near the fence. My stomach knotted. Then a soft cry drifted on the wind, so faint I nearly missed it. "Mister, please, I'm so cold." Lightning illuminated the area momentarily, and I caught a glimpse of movement behind the fence. A small figure, huddled against the metal links. A child, maybe 6 or 7, drenched and shivering. "Hey," I called, moving closer. "What are you doing out here? Where are your parents?" The child looked up, face mostly hidden by wet, matted hair. "They left me. Said I wasn't right anymore." A small hand reached through the fence. "I made a picture for you, to remember me by. Knowing rule number 6, never accept a child's drawing." I took a step back. "I can't take that," I said, tightening my grip on the flashlight. "But I can call someone to help you." The child's head tilted at an odd angle. "No one can help me now." The hand withdrew, but instead of a drawing, it now held something else. A small, curved object that gleamed wetly in the flashlight beam. "If you won't take my art, will you take my baby tooth instead? I won't need it where I'm going." Gritting my teeth, I followed the muddy footprints a few steps. "I don't want your tooth," I called out, a tremor in my voice. "Just tell me how to help you." The child stood, and in the next flash of lightning, I saw that they were on the wrong side of the fence now, somehow having passed through the metal links without opening the gate. "You already are helping," they said, voice suddenly lower, guttural. "By being here. By keeping the station open." They took a step closer, and I saw their face clearly for the first time. Features blurred and indistinct, like a photograph taken underwater. "We need the station. Need the transactions." "What are you?" I whispered, taking another step back. The child smiled. "I'm what waits on the other side of drawings. What fills the spaces left by broken rules." They held up a crayon sketch, somehow dry despite the downpour. "Last chance, Guardian. Will you take my offering? It's the gentlest invitation you'll get." A jolt of primal fear soared through me. "Get back inside." So I did, stepping away from the child, slamming the door shut behind me. That stench of lilies lingered. As I locked the door, I glimpsed the child press their face against the glass. Except it wasn't a child's face anymore, but something ancient and malformed, skin translucent enough to show the skull beneath. "Such a pity," the thing said, voice perfectly audible despite the closed door and raging storm. "We could have shown you wonders through the paper door." It dragged a finger down the glass, leaving a trail of black residue. "Instead, we'll have to find another way in. We always do." I backed away until I reached the end of the hallway, turning the corner into the main store, and nearly collided with Dempsey. "Making friends with the neighborhood children?" he asked, smirking. "That's ill-advised." "What are they?" I demanded. "What happens if someone takes their drawings?" Dempsey's expression grew serious. "They're displaced. Entities from somewhere adjacent to our reality. They seek anchor points, vessels through which they can experience our world more directly." He straightened his already perfect cuffs. "The drawings are conduits. Accept one, and you create a bridge they can cross." A doorway opened in both directions. "And the children's appearances?" "Borrowed," he said simply. "Like trying on clothes. They find forms that elicit sympathy, protection." His eyes grew distant. "The mind inside is very, very old, and very, very hungry." "Hungry for what?" "Experience," Dempsey replied. "They feed on novelty, on sensation. Their realm is static, fixed. Ours is dynamic, constantly changing." A smile played at his lips. "Imagine living in a black and white photograph, then discovering a doorway to a world of color and sound and texture. Wouldn't you be desperate to cross over?" Before I could respond, the back door rattled violently, the frame groaning under sudden pressure. Something was trying to force its way in. "It seems your little friend is persistent," Dempsey observed. "Good thing you didn't accept their offering." He glanced at his watch. The night continues, Ray. Other customers await. Let's leave our young artist to their frustration, shall we? As the night wore on, Dempsey's attention was finally diverted by a trucker who came in complaining about strange lights around pump number 3. While they were deep in conversation, the trucker growing increasingly agitated, Dempsey maintaining his unnerving calm, I seized my chance. I slipped into the corridor near the storage room, heart hammering against my ribs. A single door at the end bore a rusted plaque, Manager. This was it, the moment of truth. It was locked, of course, but the door looked old, the wood warped from years of humidity. I scanned the area for something to force it. My gaze landed on a heavy metal tool used for prying open crates. I grabbed it, alert for any sound of Dempsey returning. Hurry, hurry. A few well-placed hits, and the lock gave way with a squeal of protest. I slipped inside, quickly shutting the door behind me. The manager's office was small and cluttered, a wooden desk, filing cabinets with a faint smell of old paper. I rifled through the desk drawers, pushing aside random receipts and old forms. Then, in the bottom drawer, I found a leather-bound journal with gold lettering, Station Covenant. My hand shook as I lifted it out. This must be it, the ledger Carla had mentioned. The key to changing the rules. The cover felt strangely warm to the touch, almost alive. The text inside was handwritten in an elegant script. By these terms, the threshold shall be maintained. The station shall serve as nexus and exchange. The guardian shall enforce the covenant and collect the transactions. I flipped through the pages, finding listings of rules dating back decades. Some familiar, others mercifully obsolete. One from 1973 made my skin crawl. Should twins enter the station together, one must exit alone. The reflection becomes substance. The substance becomes inventory. Before I could read further, a voice behind me spoke. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I whirled. Dempsey stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. His eyes burned with quiet fury, all pretense of friendliness gone. That's not meant for your eyes, Ray. My mouth went dry. He's going to kill me. Or worse. But I mustered every scrap of courage. Carla said the Guardian can rewrite the rules. The station might let me. He laughed, a low, threatening rumble. Carla was a fool. She didn't understand the cost. If you change the contract, you become more than Guardian. You become the vessel. You'll bear every exchange, every transaction. And if you fail, he trailed off, letting the threat hang. Rain thundered on the roof, wind howling outside. My knuckles whitened around the ledger. Maybe that's better than letting you force me to feed nightmares to this place, I said, voice shaky but defiant. I've had enough of your tests, your manipulations. Dempsey's face darkened. Give me the ledger. I clutched it to my chest. No. If I die, I die. But I won't stay a pawn. He lunged with lightning speed, grabbing for the book. My reflexes kicked in. Somehow I twisted away, stumbling behind the desk. The overhead bulb flickered wildly, the storm raging outside in sync with our struggle. You really think you can handle the station's burden? He hissed. Your mind will shatter under the weight. The hunger will consume you from within. Carla tried to alter one minor rule and nearly lost her soul. His smile was terrible to behold. Why do you think I had to archive her? Now it made sense to me. You did something to her, turned her into inventory. I gave her the dignity of continued existence, he corrected, circling the desk slowly. Her essence still serves the station. Her memories feed the exchanges. His eyes gleamed. Would you like to join her? Become another entry in our catalog of experiences? I can arrange that, if you prefer it to guardianship. I flipped open the ledger. Pages crackled with an otherworldly energy, lines of archaic script shifting before my eyes. My vision swam, headache spiking, but I forced myself to focus. Then I'll break it or fix it. I'm done living in fear, done facilitating whatever sick transactions you need to maintain your food source? Your bridge between worlds? Dempsey snarled, lunging again. This time he slammed me against the wall, the ledger tumbling from my grip. Stars danced in my vision. "Stubborn fool," he spat. "You want to belong here? Then so be it." He snatched up the ledger, but before he could retreat, I tackled him with desperate strength. We crashed into the desk, toppling the lamp. Our feet kicked a drawer, sending papers flying. Among them, a battered photograph soared, a shot of Carla and two others, all in old station uniforms. Dempsey's face was in the background, slightly blurred but unmistakable. He's been here far longer than he admits. I wrestled the ledger from his hands, ignoring the pain in my ribs. "Let me," I gasped, "rewrite the terms." Lightning flashed outside, so bright it lit the room like day. Dempsey froze, eyes reflecting that electric white. Then he whispered, "Fine. The station wants a guardian after all. It's hungry for a new vessel." He let go. I stumbled back, ledger in hand, disoriented. I expected him to seize me again, but instead he stepped away, almost smug. "Go on, Ray. Sign it," he said softly. "You'll see what real belonging feels like." My fingers shook as I flipped to a blank page near the end. I glimpsed old signatures dating back decades, even centuries, scrawled in languages I didn't recognize. My heart hammered. Am I about to make a deal with the devil? But I wasn't trading my soul. I was changing the terms, taking control. I found a pen in the desk drawer, an antique fountain pen with dark fluid inside that didn't look like ink. My hand trembled as I pressed it to the paper. The moment the nib touched the page, pain lanced through my head. Images flashed behind my eyes. Every transaction the station had ever witnessed, every rule broken, every price paid. I saw Carla, screaming as Dempsey trapped her essence in a small glass vial. I saw the hollow ones feeding on fear. I saw a child's drawing become a doorway to something ancient. The station's history poured into me, a flood of memories and rules and hunger. So much hunger. "That's it," Dempsey murmured, his voice distant through the roar in my ears. "Accept the burden. Become the vessel." The pen moved of its own accord, writing words I didn't consciously choose. "I, Raymond Bowers, accept guardianship of the threshold. I bind myself to the station. I will maintain the balance." "No," I gasped, fighting for control. "I'm changing this." With every ounce of willpower, I forced the pen to cross out what it had written and add, "I, Raymond Bowers, accept guardianship of the threshold, but on my terms. The station will no longer feed on suffering. No sacrifice shall be permanent. No soul shall fragment beyond repair." The pen burned in my hand, blistering my skin, but I kept writing, tears streaming down my face from the pain. "All past guardians shall be released. All stored inventory shall be freed." Dempsey lurched forward, his face contorted with rage. "Stop! You don't know what you're doing." But it was too late. I'd signed my name with a flourish. The ledger slammed shut on its own, then began to glow with a fierce light that seeped through the leather binding. The entire station shuddered. "What have you done?" Dempsey screamed, his perfect composure shattering at last. His skin began to ripple, features melting like wax. "The balance. You'll destroy everything." "Not destroy," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Transform." The station groaned, a deep sound like continental plates shifting. I heard glass breaking in the main store, metal twisting. The walls around us began to crack, plaster falling in chunks. Dempsey sank to his knees, clutching his head. "You fool," he gasped. "You've killed us both." But I didn't feel like I was dying. I felt different, connected. I could sense every inch of the station, from the pumps outside to the crates of intangibles in storage. And I understood, finally, what this place truly was. Not just a gas station, but a crossing point. A thin place where different realities touched. The door to the office burst open. Standing there was Carla, or something wearing her form. Her eyes were black pools, her skin translucent. "Guardian," she said, her voice layered with others. "What have you done?" "Change the rules," I replied, surprised by the calm in my voice. She stepped closer, tilting her head at an unnatural angle. "The hunger remains. It must be fed." Not with suffering, I said. Not anymore. Then what will you feed it? Carla, or the thing using her shape, asked. Before I could answer, Dempsey began to change. His body twisted, elongated, skin splitting to reveal something else entirely, a creature of angles and voids, neither fully here nor fully elsewhere. The old covenant is broken, he rasped, voice no longer remotely human. The station requires a sacrifice to establish the new. I backed away, ledger clutched to my chest. I won't sacrifice anyone. Not anyone, he hissed. Just part of yourself. Freely given, not taken. That is the difference your new rules demand. What part? I asked cautiously. Dempsey's form stabilized slightly, becoming more humanoid though still horrifically wrong. Your memories, your time, your sleep. Small prices, paid nightly, to keep the hunger at bay. I thought of all those customers, trapped in their own transactions. Of the man cutting his flesh for his children's medicine. Of the woman surrendering her birthday memories to feed some nameless entity. And they'll be freed? I demanded. All of them? The thing that had been Dempsey nodded slowly. As your rules command. But once freed, their choices are their own. Many will return. The transactions fulfill needs on both sides of the threshold. The storm outside reached a crescendo, lightning striking so close that thunder shook the building immediately after. Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 fists demanding entry. I made my choice. I accept. Something released in the air around us. Tension I hadn't even realized was there. Dempsey's form collapsed in on itself, like a balloon deflating, until all that remained was a puddle of oily darkness that quickly evaporated. Carla blinked, confusion crossing her features. Ray? She said, her voice normal, human. What's happening? You're free, I told her. The rules have changed. Her eyes widened. You found the ledger. You changed the covenant. Her gaze darted around fearfully. Dempsey is gone, I said. At least that version of him. Her shoulders sagged with relief. What happens now? I looked down at the ledger, which had shrunk to a small pocket-sized book in my hands. Now we run the station, but differently. Dawn was breaking outside, sunlight slowly replacing the storm's fury. I could feel the station settling into its new reality. Still a threshold, still a place of transactions, but no longer a predator. I was its guardian now, its keeper. Carla gave me a tentative smile. It'll still be dangerous. The entities from the other side. They still need what we have. But now the exchange will be fair, I said. Balanced. The door chime rang. Our first customer of the day. The new era of Ray's station had begun. The midnight receipt printed, same as always. But now I read it without fear. Transaction log. 24 standard exchanges. 3 intangibles. Station integrity. Stable. Guardian sacrifice required. 2 hours of dreamless sleep. Not a bad price to pay. I tucked the receipt away and continued my rounds, checking the shelves of candy that were no longer dusty relics but fresh stock. The door chimed, and I looked up to see a familiar figure. The man who'd once cut his flesh for a jar of teeth. His arm had healed, the scars faded to pale lines. He nodded to me in recognition. Good evening, Guardian, he said quietly. Just Ray, I corrected him, as I always did. He smiled faintly. My children, they've completed their transition. They're stable now. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. He hesitated, then placed a small wooden box on the counter. A gift, not a transaction. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a perfectly normal chocolate bar, the kind you'd find in any convenience store. They made it, he said, pride in his voice. With their own hands. Human hands now. I thanked him, touched by the simple gesture. He left with a lighter step than I'd ever seen him take. Later, as night deepened and the store emptied, I sat behind the counter, unwrapped the chocolate, and took a careful bite. Sweetness flooded my mouth. Ordinary, perfect sweetness. No souls trapped inside. No essence of joy. Just cocoa and sugar and a hint of vanilla. Sometimes the greatest gift is the absence of the extraordinary. Sometimes it's just a world where chocolate tastes like chocolate, and not someone's stolen happiness. The ledger sat in my pocket, warm against my leg. The station hummed around me, a living thing, hungry but patient. And I, its guardian, surrendered a few hours of sleep each night to keep the balance. It was a fair trade. After all, I'd never slept well anyway. I finished the chocolate, savoring the last bite, and began closing up for the night. As I wiped down the counter, I thought about the man who'd stumbled into this place months ago. 43 years old with $27 in a car running on fumes. The man whose wife had called him spineless, short-sighted, good for nothing. That hollow vessel had been filled with something else now. Not just purpose, but a quiet strength I'd never known I possessed. Outside, the pines stood sentinel against a star-filled sky, no longer judging, simply watching. And if something ancient moved among them, peering in at the station's windows, at least now it had to knock and ask nicely before coming inside. That's the end of this story. If you enjoyed the video, subscribing to my channel would help me out more than you can imagine. I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.